If I were to use it, that's different because I know better. This guy didn't. Now he does. Now he doesn't do that. There's nothing racist about that at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, well, the situation with Joe Rogan where he, the clips had showed up where he had used the N-word in reference to other people saying it, and he said the thing about Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Planet of the Apes thing was pretty bad. You know, I mean, no questioning that. But people are like, oh my God, Joe Rogan's racist, boom, boom, boom. And then these black MMA fighters came out and said, no, man, Joe Rogan's one of the coolest people in the business. I trust him, boom, boom. You know,
Yep.
It's funny because one of them was the African guy who beat the Trump supporter. And everyone was all loving, behind him. And then he came out and said, no, Joe Rogan's cool. Go, oh, man, what do we do now? You know, it's like...
Well, the funny thing about Joe Rogan is and he probably does 5 podcasts a week, let's say 4 podcasts a week, average of 2 hours a podcast. Right. So that's 8 hours of material a week, 8 hours a week. And then when you take 15 seconds worth of snippets out of that 8 hours, or even out of a month's worth of 8 hours a week, and then say, see, here's proof that he's racist. No. I guarantee you that if somebody were to go through my podcasts and just take out little snippets, they could turn me into whatever they want to turn me into. Right. Racist, bigot, homophobe, Nazi, liberal, communist, you name it, they could turn me into that if they wanted to.
But at the same time, these people who are running around calling everything woke and complaining about critical race theory, they're just as bad, if not worse.
And now, I told you we wanted to keep this at an hour, and we're an hour and 16 minutes. And here you go, making it so interesting that we have to keep extending. So congratulations. Talk about this whole woke thing for a minute, and I will tell you what I know about it first. And what I know about it is, I'm still scratching my head because I truly don't understand what it means. Because I've heard it explained by several different people, several different ways, and it's not the same. I trust you. I trust the Greyfalcon. Anybody who Jamie Allman trusts, I would trust too. So please define that. And let's talk about that briefly, please.
So wokeness is basically, and it was around. I'm familiar with around 2015, 2014. It's basically the idea that you are aware of the subtle and nondescript examples of racism, and then it became extended into sexism or whatever. You understand the layers of injustice throughout society without having to explicitly have them pointed out to you. So an example would be like, noticing that on TV, they show the white guy owning a business. They show the black guy, I don't know, wearing overalls or something. You notice certain things, or you notice a person says, sir, to the white guy in a suit and tie, and then the same person in the same position, they call him by the first. It's noticing the layers of society that treat black folks, or then later it got extended to women, but it's mostly focused on race.
Okay.
It's basically an awareness, or you're awoken to the fact that you're still subject to the fundamentals of oppression that existed before the Civil Rights Act. So that's basically the idea, that you're woke, you're awoken. What's interesting is the Trump supporters have basically the same kind of thing. They're like, oh, we know Trump really won the election. Look at those machines. Look at how those people say this or that. Or they're woke like, oh, well, that they're doing this because they want to turn all our children into homosexuals. So the far right has become the most woke people in the whole country, because the people on the left don't say woke anymore. The anti-racism movement has dropped the word woke because they got sick of the black movement had the same thing. You had black people who every single little thing they called racist. And eventually there are certain black folks like, hey, wait a minute, dude. Like, for instance, there were people who were saying that every character in every black movie was a racist stereotype. Like, even to the point where if the black woman was smart and had money, that was a racist stereotype. And they were woke. And they're like, well, wait a minute. Hold up, dude. That's stupid. I mean, what are we supposed to do? So the anti-racist movement dropped the woke thing. But now you see the people on the other side saying, oh, you guys are so woke, because they know that people don't like woke activists, because woke activists were extremely annoying. You know, they were the kind of person where you would say something and you go, hey, that's racist. You said the word actually. And it's like, what? So that's why it's an effective tool.
So is this a term that was used, isn't used? It's kind of been dropped by the people who brought it up.
Yes.
But it's being trying to be extended by people who never used it to begin with?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So now people on the right are using woke, and this is the far right. These are the people who are basically trying to be racist, honestly. It's an excuse to be racist. So if you see a movie, like for instance, I don't know if you watch any of the Disney series.
I don't.
But there's a series where they made one of the it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like a prequel to the Star Wars. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. And so now what it is like the sci-fi, they're putting more black folks and they're putting, more brown people in lead roles. And the white people are calling it, the white people who are on the far right are saying, oh, it's not good anymore. They're trying to be woke. And I'm just like, well, what are you talking about? It's like, well, they're just feeling the need to put black people and LGBT people in these movies. And I'm like, you do know that the people who are going to see the movies, the younger generation, is more black and brown and LGBT than people 40 and up, right? They are? Yeah, dummy. They're not doing that because they care about any social justice. They're doing that because those people will not go see a movie unless they're people who look like them in the movie. And they're like, oh, they're just trying to make money, dummy.
And I kind of had a discussion with somebody about that one time, and here's how it was kind of explained to me. It's similar to what you said, but you do see. Like I had a guy tell me one time, well, you see what's going on right now. You don't see any white men in commercials anymore. I said, I have noticed that you see less.
Right.
Yeah. So they've canceled all the white actors. I said, I'm not sure. And they do that they'll throw gay people in commercials. They throw brown people, black people. And they said, well, see there, they're just succumbing to the woke movement. I said, I kind of think that they're trying to sell this stuff to them. I said, I guarantee that if they did this and they didn't get results, they would change it tomorrow. Now, the argument that I had one time with somebody who was saying, well, look at these movies. It was similar to what you said. All the bankers used to be white. And all the bankers are white. Okay, well, all the people who own corporations, they always depict them as being white. I said, okay, that's because most of them are. It's kind of accurate. Right. And they said, well, that's ridiculous. I said, no, it's not ridiculous. I said, if you were to depict an NBA player, would you put 5 white guys out there? They said, of course not, because they're all black. And I said, well, why is that? They said, well, because black people are better at basketball than white people. I said, okay. Now, if I were to say, well, all the bankers and businessmen are white because white people are better at business and basketball, can I say that? They said, no, that's racist. I said, well, then how can you say that there's more black basketball players than white basketball players? Because they're better. You've got to be careful with what you say. Because sometimes things are they're just the way they are because that's just the way they are.
So what you were that person you're describing there, that's an example of wokeness. Like, oh, I'm noticing that you may show all the bankers being white guys.
Uh-huh.
But there are people complain about Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones had black people in it, but the prime people who were running stuff in the movie were white. They're like, why couldn't they have some black people who are, well, I mean, they had black folks, but for the most part, they were from a different part of the world that the center of the show was focused on.
Right. Right.
And it wasn't like, well, we're just saying black people. In the show, there were black people who ran stuff, but they weren't there. Like, the people are going to look like the people who, who are of that community. And they just happened to be in a place where everyone had English accents.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so the woke, and that's what, the wokeness would be to, object to that. And I had the same reaction, like, well, I mean, they're not supposed to be black there. I mean, black people didn't live there. Mm-hmm. So, but so there is an extent that where you can take it to where you go overboard. But as far as like, if it's a fantasy setting, yeah, they've put some more black folks, they put more women in, but that's not new. I mean, you had Wonder Woman, Charlie's Angels. There's been a progressive movement to more women in action roles. And part of that's because men like that. I'll just be honest.
Sure.
Men like it too. It's not like
wait a minute. Why do men like that?
Ooh,
be careful. Be careful.
You get in trouble, man. You get in trouble, dude. Because a lot of men find women who kick ass sexy. That's the best I can do. Uh-huh. I don't know if I'm still in trouble for that, but that's the truth. Uh-huh. A lot of men find women who can do action and stuff. It's not just, of course, a lot of women like it, mm-hmm. but there's a lot of men who think that's, I don't hear a lot of men angry that the characters from Marvel, the women from Marvel, that's actually, like, Black Widow is really awesome. Most men are cool with that. Mm-hmm. Now, there are a few people who are mad that they made a few women characters stronger than Thor. Those are those weird sort of Nordic cult nerds, but nobody cares about them. They're ridiculous.
So let me get this straight. When you're talking about Black Widow and Thor and Wonder Woman, yeah. People are upset because you're not making it truly authentic the way it really is. It's a comic. It's a comic book. Yes, there's nothing authentic about it.
Yes, there are people that are mad that a couple of the woman characters were made stronger than Thor, and I'm just like, dude, I'll say this: if a person says that, I'm going to hold that against them personally. I'm going to be worried about them because that's weird. That's weird.
Well, but
now, I don't. We can have different opinions, but if you're mad about that, I'm going to kind of step away.
Exactly. And I'm not big into the comic book fantasy stuff. I mean, I've seen some of them, but to me, after I've seen one or two of them, they all seem to be the same. But that's just me. I have nothing against them. They're very popular.
This is not your thing.
Right. It's not my thing. But I am, or I guess I would say I was, a huge James Bond fan. The last few James Bond films, especially the last one, they've totally turned me off. And the biggest, did you see the last Bond film?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I haven't seen it yet.
Here's the biggest thing that turned me off. And I told people, every time I tell a woman this, their eyes get big and their mouth drops because it's a totally sexist old man thing to say. But here's the biggest thing about the Bond film, the last Bond film, that turned me off. There's a scene where Bond and another secret agent, a woman, very attractive, scantily dressed woman, they go into almost like a John Wick type scene where they're just kicking ass and just killing all the bad guys. Okay. Slow motion, flipping, doing all this kind of stuff. It's very cool. I liked it. And when it was all done, when Bond and this very sexy, scantily clad secret agent, when they were done killing all the bad guys, what do you expect Bond to do? Put his arms around her, kiss her, and take her into the back room. No, that's not what he did. He extended his right hand and he said, "Thank you. I've enjoyed working with you. We'll have to do this again."
Yeah,
that's not James Bond.
Can't do that anymore. You can't. Right? That's with what's his name? Was that the one with Daniel
Craig?
What's his name? Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
No, he's not that guy.
Well, and that's why I'm not a big James Bond fan. I mean, this is James Bond. I mean, James Bond, he turned pussy galore from a lesbian into a heterosexual. That's how manly James Bond is, okay? That's the James Bond I want to see.
But this is a different... Yeah,
I'm in the minority. It is a different James Bond. And
this is a James Bond for a different era.
And they can keep him.
Right.
Am I canceled?